What year did you end up back in California?
I got back to California in '84, and once I got to California, I was stationed in Riverside, which is not far from where my mom and them live, and Corona's only like 20 miles. So I was back on my home turf. Things had changed drastically. Guys had turntables. People were doing parties. There was this group from LA that would come out to Riverside and do parties. It was called Uncle Jam's Army, and they had this dude, Egyptian Lover, as they DJ. And, you know, he was the one that I seen in California. That was probably like the first DJ I seen in California out there in Riverside area. And then there was another guy that I ended up doing some parties and stuff with. His name was Byron Davis. He had this thing called Players Productions in Riverside. So the little parties that he was giving, you know, he wasn't on no BS. I guess he lived near the military base. So, you know, I told him who I was and, you know, that I knew about the stuff and this, that, and other. I just came back from England, blah, blah, blah. And so sometimes he would let me spin, you know. He didn't really trip off of, you know, like, oh, no, you can't do this, you know, whatever. He allowed me to, you know, to spin at a couple of his parties and things like that. And we became good friends based off of that. I guess, you know, I was, like I say, we lived not too far from each other. I was on the base and he lived right outside of the base.
And then what were you playing at the time?
The records?
Yeah.
That was being played, you know, I was a old school, you know, early hip hop head of what was going on, the underground hip hop of New York. There was no such thing as a, you know, real hip hop presence in LA at that time outside of, yeah, I think you had the Ice-T record.
When that.
Yeah, that, and then Uncle Jam's Army and them actually put a record out maybe like 6 months after I had got back. That was called Dollar Free. That was probably, you know, that was my favorite record of theirs. And then later on, like '85, LA Dream Team them showed up. Bobby Jimmy and the Critters and all these other little records start coming out of Los Angeles. That was, you know, that was out of Macola.
Right. So getting
those records along with, you know, the East Coast underground hip hop scene, the Disco 4, you know, Fantasy 3, CD 3, all of these underground rap groups. And I learned a lot just by, you know, by learning New York culture through those records, because it was definitely different slang than what we was accustomed to hearing, different things. And it's funny, when I was on my way coming back to California, there was a buddy of mine at the military base in England. His younger brother was a DJ, and he had 1200s, and, you know, and he had, you know, a mixer that had a crossfader on it. I said, wow. So he hooked me up with his brother. So when I was flying back from England, when you come back from overseas, you're gonna come into New York. You're gonna fly into New York, and then you get dispatched to wherever it is that you're going from that point. So I was able to fly into New York, meet him. He lived in the Bronx. We went down on 42nd Street with the, you know, my leave money and all of that stuff. And I was able to get, you know, 2 1200 turntables and a mixer. It was called the Eli Mixer. And we went back to his house. I was so shook about, because we had to get on the train in Manhattan, 42nd Street with these 2 turntable boxes and take the train from downtown all the way up to the Bronx. And then we had to walk like 2 blocks with these turntables.
That's not nice.
I didn't even think we was gonna make it to his house. I thought we was gonna get robbed or get clunked in the head for him or whatever, but we made it. And when he showed me his setup in his bedroom, and he was the first one to show me how to really, he's the first one he introduced me to breakbeat records. So, you know, you gotta have 2 of these records, and, you know, you gotta have, you know, you gotta be able to bring the records back, you know, in a certain amount of time, this, that, and other. Because I knew how to do that, but I was doing it with an up and down mixer. So since I didn't have no fader, I had to, you know, if one fader is up, the other one's down. When I go to the other record, I'd have to do that, and then let me move this microphone out the way. And to get to this turntable, I had to do that. So, you know, I didn't know anything about a crossfader. So he said, man, the crossfader is going to allow you to control 2 records at the same time. You know what I mean? You'll be able to do a lot more stuff than what it is that you know how to do. So he, you know, because at first I was just scratching with my left hand. You know, I had my turntable set over like regular like this, but I would go from this turntable and then go to that turntable and then go to that. So he said, you're gonna have to learn how to scratch with your other hand.
So you're left-handed?
No, I mean, I was able to control the fader good. I'm right-handed, so I was able to control the fader better with my right hand and rub the records with my left.
Gotcha.
So, but dude said to me that you're gonna have to learn how to do the, you know, you're gonna have to learn how to manipulate the records with your right hand also. So, so basically that's how I got into being able to go back and forth on the turntables and was practicing. And, you know, this guy's name, I can't remember his real name, but his DJ name was Tretch DJ CB. So since I was end up becoming a protege of his, that's where I get the Tretch DJ from him. So I was Tretch DJ Mr. Mixx.
Gotcha. Okay. And then what made
there's too much information.
Well, what made you go from that to like, hey, let's form a group and actually make records? Because I think it's, like you said, in the LA area, but even far out like Riverside, which people should understand is an hour away, but 60 miles or whatever. It's
Right.
like, it's not like that's next door. It's
right.
It's a ways away. So what gave you the idea, the confidence, the belief that, oh man, I can start making records with my friends?
Well, at the time, you know, we had like little, you know, when I was in England, there was, you know, little guys that was trying to imitate what Grandmaster Flash and them was doing, the Cold Crush Brothers, all of that over there. But when I got back to California, it's obvious I didn't know anybody that was into it. But the fact of me being the only person on the military base with turntables in their barracks caused a lot of commotion in the barracks. So I worked in the dining hall in the hospital, and all of the hospital personnel was in this one particular barracks. And at the time, Chris Wong, he worked in outpatient records in the hospital. So, you know, one day he came through, you know, through the lunch line, and I'm up there flipping burgers and all of that. He said, "Man, I hear you got some turntables in your dorm room." I said, "Yeah." He's asked me where was I from, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. He said he was from New York, and, you know, I'm really into the rap stuff, and this, that, and the other. I wrote some rhymes. I was doing some stuff with some guys in Illinois. He was stationed at another base. March Air Force Base was his second base. He was stationed in Illinois first. Okay. So when he transferred from Illinois and came to March Air Force Base, that's how we met. We met, you know, through the Chow line. And what he started doing, he started coming to my room, and we started, you know, just listening to rap records, trying to imitate what it is that we're hearing on the records. We're seeing these records that's coming from, like I say, Egyptian Lover and Bobby Jimmy and all these other people that was out of McCullough Records. But we seen that, you know, they gave the information of McCullough Records where it was in Hollywood, phone number and everything that's on the actual label. So once we start messing around and start being able to feel like we could compete with emulating what it is that we're hearing on these underground records and all of that stuff, we decided to, you know, do a recording at a real studio and see what would happen.
And then how and when did Yuri get in the mix then?
Oh yeah, now he heard of, like I say, he lived in our barracks also. So, you know, it was like news to, there's some guy that's up there that's scratching and doing all of this stuff in the barracks. So my name was ringing around the base. So he met up with me, and we started, you know, he was a lot more versed than Chris was at that time. You know, he definitely was part like a DJ crew and all of that stuff in New York before he came into the service. So me and him hit it off very well. And, you know, his stuff was more so like, I wouldn't call it conscious rap. I would just call it the kind of rapping that they was doing back in those days. You know, when Melly Mel and them came out with the message, everybody was on the trend of hipping you to the real. So, you know, Electric Kingdom is, you know, it ain't conscious rap, but it's talking about looting and shooting, stabbing and grabbing, talking about the different things, the ills of society that's going on. So that was the style at that time. You know, what people do for money was a big record at that time. They're talking about social ills and different things. So that's the page that he was on, talking about, you know, or going that zone or that lane with making records. Because nobody else really thought about, you know, talking about their car or this or that. And that part was way down the road. Nobody was making no records like that at all.
Yeah. So that's where the revelation then comes in, right?
Right, exactly. It was, you know, we basically, you know, we came up with the name Two Live Crew as in like TOO, like we're the livest group ever. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, but since the styles were different, he did, you know, Revelation all by himself, and the flip side, Two Live, is the song that, you know, me and Chris did by ourselves. You know, you notice there's no scratching on Revelation. I just did the drum programming, and we had a keyboard guy come in to play some little keyboard parts over how we, you know, programmed the record.
Yeah, it's amazing thinking back that there's such a difference in the two records, but even as we fast forward just a little bit so I can mention it while we're talking about it, that was always the thing about Two Live Is What We Are that always blew me away, was that there was only like 2 or 3 sexual records. The rest of it was more like the Two Live beatbox, you know, was
right. Exactly.
The perception of it is one thing, but when you listen to the record, it's totally different.
Right.
And I think Two Live Crew is similar, even though it's not quite as dramatic. Like I always felt that way about Too Short, because he had so much conscious music and so much about the streets and so much this, and he had a couple sex songs, but those are the ones that people, that's what they wanted.
Right, exactly.
But he had, you know, he had It's Your Life, he had Cocaine, you know, all those records that Short had early.
Right.
That were nothing about sex. But anyway.
Right, exactly.
But isn't the Two Live, that's where you mentioned Luke Skywalker and, or Chris, I should say, mentioned, you guys mentioned him. And do you know, did that directly have an effect of him eventually reaching out to you?
Yes, definitely did, because that was the DJ name that Luther Campbell was going by with him in Ghetto Style DJs, and the record showed up in you know, in the record pool that they had, and the guy that worked records from Macola told him, you know about the record, or when he was playing through the records, he heard that thing, that little line that Chris said, and they liked the beat of the record. They was playing that side more so than playing the Revelation side. They played both of them, but they played the other side mostly because of that line, like Luke Skywalker, I got the force. Every time I rhyme, I am the boss. He said, yeah, man, they talking about me. They, you know, he just bullshitting, you know. So he actually reached out to us. You know, the phone number that was on there was my mom's phone number, because at that time there's no such thing as you know, cell phones and all of that stuff. You know, people that was in the streets may have had pages. I didn't have no pager or anything like that to be contacted. So the phone number was to my mom's house. So he calls my mom's house and leaves a message of, you know, wanting to do a show with us and this, that, and the other. And I thought she was joking. I thought he was joking. I mean, who's gonna, you know, a guy named Luke Skywalker from Florida is calling you about doing a show, and we ain't never did no shows outside of DJing parties and things like that. We had never did no actual show before. So it's just, you know, you can't make this shit up. So,
yeah, it's preposterous. And plus, like you said, back then, it wasn't like there was a way to research it, and the industry was so small. It was just like, what?
Right, and we didn't take ourselves from the standpoint, we were just making the record. We know that we're in the military, man. We just did it really more so to be able to do it because we felt like it's something that we could do. We didn't know, what it was gonna actually be about or what was gonna actually happen. We seen the address from McCullough Records on a Uncle Jam's Army record or a Bobby Jimmy record or something. And we called down there and said, hey man, we got a record. We want to bring it down there to you guys and put it out. Yeah, bring it on down, bring it on down. So we went out there to LA, drove out there and went to see Don McMillan. And he just took the record from us. No questions asked, gave us some papers to sign for it to be in their system. And that was that. We went back to the military base and they kept sending invoices after invoice after invoice after invoice of records being sent this place, that place, whatever. We was getting a lot of invoices going to Florida though, but they never sent no damn checks. We're seeing 300 records going to Miami, Florida, 300 records went to St. Louis, 200 records went to Philadelphia. And all. So the records are moving, at least invoices are being made, but none of that money is coming to us. It just shows, that something is happening. So we kind of had an idea that it wasn't totally out of the way that somebody would call, but we never expected it.
So what, did you ever ask McCullough what was going on with some money, some royalties, or?
No, because we were so green, we didn't have an understanding of how the process really went. We were just happy to be able to say that, we was able to come back to the base with 2 boxes of records and be able to show people, yeah, we got a record. We made a record.
Gotcha.
In the beginning, hip-hop was ruled by the East Coast. Then the West Coast rose to prominence thanks to gangster rap. Hip-hop changed the world. Gangster rap changed the narrative.
I'm representing for the gangsters all across the world.
And then changed the world again.
'Cause I'll come and take your life away.
The history of gangster rap features unheard stories, unseen photos and documents, all with exclusive interviews from the founders and players who shaped gangster rap.
I think a real gangster rapper has to scare you a little bit.
The history of gangster rap written by veteran rap journalist Soren Baker. In stores now.
Yo, what up? This is DJ Quick. Be sure to pick up my homeboy Soren Baker's book, The History of Gangster Rap, if you really want to know what we do.